Yeah.
Drugs. Where did he encourage them? He said, look, you're going to hold up snakes. You're going to drink this thonasemon, this death inducer, which is a cult compound. Nero's got the friggin' formula for it. Do you understand? This is a big deal in antiquity.
Yes.
And he's involved in this stuff. Jesus Christ is involved in this stuff. He's even got the poison garments. Right? He does what those who were Christed do. He casts out demons.
So you also said on the first podcast, you mentioned that when Jesus was caught in the park, he was high as fuck.
Yes.
He was tripping balls.
Correct.
Cops captured him.
Yep.
And he was crucified 8 hours later.
Yeah.
He was captured at 4, crucified.
I don't know if it was a full 8. I don't know if it was full 8 hours, but by like 3 o'clock he's dead.
3 o'clock he's
so
dead.
I think it's noon he starts getting
He
crucified.
died early.
Yeah.
Right?
He died prematurely.
And they offered, and he screamed. He was screaming out. Some people say he was singing.
Yeah.
And somebody offered him, his followers were trying to give him a sponge or something full of vinegar.
Correct.
Okay, real quick. So in terms of... So this is all from the Greek text, right?
Yeah. Supposedly Greek Bible.
Greek Bible, right. So then essentially this is all happening in Athens? Greece? In that whole territory, or
no,
like, and then like this, like basically this.
I think at the time Greek was like the dominant language, or like dominant
Oh, okay, the dominant language. Oh, gotcha. But where was this happening? Does it? I don't know if it ever went over that. As far as like the whole Jesus thing, was that still?
Jesus was all happening in Jerusalem, I'm pretty sure, no? Or like
gotcha.
in Egypt, or in between.
That whole.
Yeah, somewhere in like.
Okay. For sure.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Right. Because is it? For example, you seen Passion of the Christ, right? Or like just the original. That's all happening. What in fucking like? Where was Jesus crucified in the Passion of the Christ?
Rome.
It was in Rome, right?
So Rome.
But that's based on the Catholic. That's based on the Catholic version of, right? Was Jesus always crucified in?
Yeah, the Romans were always.
The Romans crucified Jesus. Yeah. This was in Italy and Rome.
And he even explains it how like the Romans were constantly crucifying Christians because they were afraid that Christians like spreading their whole like if Christians keep going, like don't let them like spread their shit because like it's gonna destroy everything we got going on. So it was like that was during that time in the Romans, and I'm pretty sure Romans was like Latin and Greek, like that was the two.
Right. Gotcha.
And you say that Nonus wrote about that vinegar being an antidote to the horned African viper.
He says it's an antidoton, so he uses the Greek word antidote for the dipsas, which is identified as the North African horned viper.
Okay, let's put a pin right there.
Because of its symptom that it causes, that is extreme thirst.
Right.
When he's on the cross, he's screaming, I am thirsty. And there is a document. The reason that Nonus is telling us this is the Geoponica also shows that the word that you and I are translating vinegar is the word for the antidote commonly for the specific snake venom that is used in their religious rites. Jesus is pushing those very same drugs in the Gospel of Mark.
When was Nonus? Who was Nonus?
Yeah, 5th
Anno Domini?
AD, and he is an author of a work called The Paraphrase of John, and he's an expert grammarian. We don't have these anymore, but they're called grammatikoi. And he was able to reproduce this ancient form of Homeric dactylic hexameter. He's able to bring it down because it's the cult language. He brought it down to the 5th into the 6th. And
he quite literally wrote about that vinegar being the specific word for the antidote for the viper venom.
actually wrote. You can look it up. It's in a work called The Paraphrase of the Gospel of John.
The paraphrase of the gospel.
Where he goes through the whole Gospel of John and he explains to you what's going on. He writes it in his own beautiful, like, lofty Greek. It's not Attic Greek. It's Homeric. And the fact that he can master their vocabulary on top of his own is quite dramatic.
In the 5th century.
Yeah, he's doing this late. But he says it's an antidote, which the Japonica, which is a Byzantine farming manual, it actually has the recipe for it. And it says the vinegar and then it treats the dipsass and blah, blah, blah. So I'm not making that up. That's in there.
So is anybody else who's read that? I imagine Ruck has read that, right? He's read Nonus?
Why would he have read the Japonica?
I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
is that not a common thing for classicists to read?
No. Totally uncommon.
Where did you find it?
Dr. John Scarborough put me onto it.
Okay.
He said, hey, get this Byzantine text. I was like, what's that? He's like, it's full of drugs. I was like, good. So, yeah. And it has the whole explanation of what the vinegar is and what it does. So when Jesus is up there going, oh, I'm so thirsty, right?
But he was translating John's gospel. And the way John wrote was not complex. It was very primitive, right?
No.
And John wrote it in what language?
Greek.
In Greek.
It's Greek.
Was Nonus's Greek better than John's?
Nonus's Greek was a...
More detailed?
Think of it as if it's two guitarists. It's somebody who's a master of a guitar.
I could think
compared to somebody who is...
Stephen King or something.
Proficient and able to perform in bars, but is never going to take a stage of a group and infatuate 1,000, 100,000 people because of their level of artistic, gain. That's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with somebody who's, and you get that. There's all sorts of different sorts. Some of them, look, I'm sorry, you read the Aristotle. It makes you feel stupid, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you're not as smart as Aristotle. I'm not. I don't think anybody else around us is, to be quite honest. So, you see that reflected in the language gives them that sword, that sharp sword to be able to use, to be able to bring you something, some kind of ecstasy. Right? Why are we so far behind? Why are we just hearing about emperors on drugs? Why are we just hearing about the sex industry, the kink and antiquity? You know what I can do? This is what the word is. Give me a eunuch. What do you do with eunuchs? You don't even know. You don't even know.
Trade I want to talk to people like this.
What you buy some. If you buy some. If you and I go out tonight with Steve and we're like, let's get 2 eunuchs. Okay?
Let's get a eunuch.
What are we going to do with those eunuchs?
You tell me.
No, what do you want to do? I don't know.
I don't want 2 eunuchs.
It was your idea. If you're going to do it, commit. I don't want to be there and you're like, I don't know.
I'm not committing to 2 eunuchs. I'm not going to do that. I don't need the eunuchs. I don't need an antidote.
But let's say that. Let's just say it's the world. Just a thought experiment.
Okay. Let's do a thought experiment. Okay.
Yeah, 2 eunuchs.
I hope somebody clips this out of context.
We're going to bring these 2 eunuchs back here. Right? And I have some things I want to do with them. Right? What would you like to? Just as we're producers. We're going to bring this thing forward. Right? Now you know why performing the mysteries was highly illegal. Right? It's only the priesthood that's allowed to do this. Right? That's why they protect it, man.
You couldn't do it recreationally. You couldn't perform a mystery in your house.
Because it turns into a child ring. You remember, you're protecting oracles, baby. You have to have a priesthood that puts up a legal shield.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So tell me why we need the eunuchs.
Oh, okay. Well, what can you do with the eunuch?
You can extract their bodily fluids.
Some of them, you can. Some of them, but before, you don't just jump in to extracting body fluids. My God, man. Romance this thing. We can take off their testicles. The first thing that we do is grab that.
They're already eunuchs.
8. Well, that's part of the fun.
Oh, okay.
Right. Okay, get beyond the castration. Fine. So we castrate our eunuchs, and then their body becomes a vessel of nectar. And there are ways you can give people drugs and have them produce certain substances that can then be harvested from the person, right? Drugs straight out, right? And the eunuch, you can collect from that eunuch his milk, right? Well, I don't say it looks like milk, they don't. They describe it and it's serous. Just like that girl with the grape-sized breasts that Galen talks about, and the serous exudate that comes out of her breasts that they're using. Right? That's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. They're talking about transforming. Can you capacitate? Look, I had this down here. Right after Jesus' edition, I was going to talk about, can you capacitate somebody with drugs? You've got to remember the societies that we're talking about will also base what they're doing on the idea that you can use drugs to take yourself to a better state. Your mind, your soul, everything. All right? So the drug is very much the mysterium, is very much the mystery, so much so that Galen says, hey, you realize so-and-so has his mysterium and it's called blank. Right? So the word mystery itself becomes a drug term. So I think that's the only thing I can add to Dr. Ruck standing in the breach.
Right.
With his giant tools of doom in his fingers and his linguistic, his brain, and his heart. He's a good man. Yeah.
What about Nero's death inducers?
Yeah. They're paired with the Theriac.
When was Nero?
First century, middle of the first century.
Middle of the first, and he, what was his position? Who was he?
He was emperor, and he was a little bit, he did some strange things. He got the power, and he was like, dude, I am totally taking it out on everybody. Everybody was gonna pay. You know what I mean? And he married a little boy, by the way.
Right.
Yeah, that was the whole thing. I'm sure you looked that up. But his arch physician had a Theriac combo that has the drug that is the death inducer, the thalassemon, paired with the galena that's antidote, and he's got the whole recipe. Is
it similar to the Theriac, to Galen's Theriac?
Yeah, it is Galen. It's not Galen's theory. It's one of the Theriacs that Galen talks about, because there's a whole bunch of them. It's not the one that he's got Marcus Aurelius on.
Right.
No, that one's making... People are going to research this now. I heard this is making a little bit of headway. Right? Because people just read the document that talks about Marcus Aurelius and the Theriac that he was taking, the drug combo that he was taking. Right? And it's written there in Galen, and Galen's talking about he's doing a lot better on it. So... people are going to read
he's looking
that.
Better.
Yes. Regenerative. Love it.
Because Marcus Aurelius was on the dope.
He was a hophead. Yeah, hophead. Doing his opium and people.
Now the Theriac had like a bunch of different viper venoms, viper flesh, had opium, all kinds of animal and plant products mixed into it. And it was supposed to be like a panacea, right?
Yes. But most importantly, people think, the Theriac is a drug that you take that makes you invincible, gives you that ultimate health, gives you that fountain of life. Mm-hmm. No. It's not. The Theriac is one half of one circle. And the other half of the circle is the Deathbringer.
Yes.
And together they work to open up that portal to get you to the other side and back.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the cult finds the knowledge, know yourself.
Some different breakthrough
Get the stuff
psychedelic
written
trips.
all over the place, right?
I mean,
Dying and
Yeah.
coming back, like literally,
Yeah.
like.
Oh,
So what was
taking a drug that
what-
kills you and brings you back to life. Like it's like, oh, you want to just see what's on the other side real quick? Come real quick. Oh, what was that?
isn't that what they describe to be like a DMT experience or ayahuasca or some shit like that, right?
Yeah, basically.
I mean, even I've never felt it like this. Maybe I did. I don't know. Maybe it was like a different type of rebirth as far as like, after a major dose of LSD.
Like an eco death. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that right.
But like
But this is like you're
literally dying and coming back. Like, this is crazy.
so special about Nero's death inducers?
From Galen's perspective, what was special is the fact that the formula is written in this, it's a dactylic hexameter again. So this thing is coming from a genuine source, right? You talk about who are the sources that preceded these people. We're talking about people like Nicander, who's that priest. People need to be introduced to the ancient priest. They don't know him or her. Right, and he or she, what are they known for above all else? They're guitar players, baby. They're guitar players. They're sexy, sexy guitar players. And they are going to be able to retune you. They're going to do it, and they have rights to do it. Do you understand? They're going to make something of you. And when you come back from this experience, you will know yourself. So this is healing. This is healing, right? And the monist virus swarmed in and shut it down. That's the type of purging that you need. You need your people to purge, or else you get tyranny.
Yes, yeah. Do you think there's something about the human brain that was something through evolution that wired the human brain to be dependent on a higher power? Something deep inside our brain, something ancient that has built this dependency on a higher power.
I think definitely the proof is in the design. The proof is in the design. If you can go into the human body, this shocked me. As you can tell, this was part of my awakening when I was a graduate student at Madison. And I was taking my microbiology courses. And I realized, oh my God,
Yeah, they'll be here in like
there are receptors for cannabis in your brain.
9:25.
Oh, like 15 minutes?
It makes no sense. It's completely contrary. Unless you should be having cannabis, it makes no sense to have a receptor there for it. It makes no sense. And I realized in studying that
This is the first time I heard
at Madison, and I was taking my microbiology courses, and I realized, oh my God, there are receptors for cannabis in your brain. It makes no sense. It's completely contrary. Unless you should be having cannabis, it makes no sense to have a receptor there for it. It makes no sense. And I realized in studying that inner part of the system that carries that fluid, that water of life that I talked about before, and sitting right there above that hypothalamus, just dreaming those chemicals, just dropping those chemicals in there. I realized there's something that's controlling. There's something in the culture that controls. And it's what Julian, I think, the apostate said, that Christianity has a tendency, monism has a tendency to put control. And those drugs are beyond the control. The true Bacchic freedom is beyond.
Well, we are drugs. Human beings, animals, we're drugs. We're walking bags of drugs, of chemicals that are constantly fluctuating in their balance. We're never in a one particular state. Our state is always going up and down like waves, like depending on what our cortisol level is, our hormonal levels, like it's. And every plant and animal and human being is a producer of DMT. We all have, everything has DMT in it. Everything. Our brains, our lungs. First of all, how do you make something illegal that is in everything?
Right. Yeah, right. It seems like it should be ethically wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's like making H2O illegal. You can't do that, dude.
Right.
We're all based on it.
So your higher power is that muse. Your higher power is the muse.
Definitely. Oh, I'm so glad. I don't know if I'm capable of receiving such an honor to say that. You know, the earliest temples, those Greeks with their gorgeous language, it was coming to a peak. The temples that they built were temples to the muse beforehand. It took me a while until I saw in a cellular biology course, until I saw her write the story of what was going on with the dance of everything. I was like, oh God. Right? And then I was like, hello. Right? Love it. You gotta dance, baby. You gotta dance. That's all there is to it. Well, why else are you living, Danny? Why are you here? Right? She's the one pushing you. You know what I mean? Well, I mean, seriously. Feed me.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to ask you about was Caligula.
Yeah.
Who's Caligula?
Caligula was a guy who supposedly was pretty good. He's an emperor early first, and he comes in and he does pretty good to start with, but next thing you know, he's got senators up on the table and he's sticking his hand up to his elbow in their anus. Yeah. Why would you do that? They say it's because he had a fever. I think that's an excuse. It's like the dude got COVID, and next thing you know, he's fisting senators.
Yeah, what was going on with that? He was sick for a long time.
Yeah.
Yo,
A long fever.
Yo, that
Probably messed up his brain.
He didn't try the Theriac?
Apparently he didn't get enough of it or something, because he took a dive, and when he came back, he was in the mood for fisting. Some people might say he did it on purpose. You know, Tiberius has little boys who were eunuchs. We were talking about eunuchs and what you can do with them. They can swim. I would like to go swimming. I would like to design. I am Tiberius. I am the emperor. I have an island. It's called Capri. And on that island, it's goats. Get it? It's God. You know why? You can go to grottos on the island, and there's 9 to 13-year-old boys. There's 9 to 13-year-old boys there. And the same age girls, pre-pubescent, and they will do what it will take to heal you. Yeah, you may get killed in the process. You may get killed, or somebody may have to get thrown over the cliff. You know how they deal with people on the island? Yeah, what do you do when she gets pregnant? Because this is a big deal. He's got to staff this whole island. You thinking Epstein is backwards and tiny. Right? Compared to what Tiberius was doing. He supplies his island full of kids of all ages. It says that he has a penchant for the babies who have not yet stopped drinking from the breast. And the reason for this is because he's going to take that baby and he's going to put that baby on something. And he's going to take that baby when he's done and throw it over the cliff.
Tiberius.
Yeah. He has little kids, little eunuchs.
And this is in what, the first?
Yeah, first. This is when Jesus is alive, baby. This is who's ruling when Jesus is alive. That's why the king is such an important connection. When Jesus says, I'm not attracted to kids, he's trying to separate himself. Right? He's caught red-handed, to be honest, because he's caught next to a naked kid, right, by a SWAT team. That's pretty good. That pretty much sealed the deal, right? But you take your eunuch and you make your eunuch swim. That's a fun thing you can do. Look, just swim. I'm going to go swimming. And every time I go swimming, I want you to swim by me. Right? Like you're surrounding me. And I want you to go in and I want you to take little nibbles of my genitalia. Okay, nothing to hurt me. Just little nibbles. Right? A little nibble of the genitalia. You know what the Baptists are doing? The same thing, baby. you are getting people. I brought the word for. You're getting people used to the idea of performing you on you. That's why you need disciples. Right? I need you to eat this seed. Do you understand? There's a reason that you have to do it. Now, Tiberius takes it to the nth degree, to where he's, he's staffing a whole island full of prepubescent boys and girls. And on this island, you can go find the grottos of the nymphs, if that's your thing. If that's your thing, you've got to be careful, but if that's your thing, that's your thing. And those nymphs will do what they need to do. So let's have a party with all of the senators. Let's get them all here, and let's put them in their place. And this is a tactic. It's a tactic. People think, oh my God, it's power, baby. If you can the senator, imagine Trump thinks he's powerful, right? Right? I don't see him fit anybody. Okay.
You don't see it, but you never know. He could be doing it behind closed doors.
Let me say this so that it makes it, meets its mark.
Okay.
Right. When Nancy Pelosi, right, is watching Donald Trump, her husband, in front of the entire Senate, like it's a big dinner party, by the way. We can do this at Mar-a-Lago if you want.
Okay.
Right, we can do it. Right, if he hasn't thought of this, let's put the thought in his head right now. Right?
Okay.
Pure satanic.
I think he'll watch this.
Energy. You think so? Yeah. Right, what you have to do is you have to find Melania, get inside her. Right. Where do you go to get that? You got to get inside their head, and you have to penetrate that dream. This is how the Magi are working. Why? Because their eyes are open, Danny. When you start to interact with the outside, apparently you get some kind of knowledge. That knowledge can be cataloged over years of people's experience. That's what the priests are doing. And they're creating a pathway for you to be able to navigate. Right? So, I don't know, maybe there's something to it. Maybe once you blast off with that DMT or whatever the entire Senate, like it's a big dinner party, by the way. We can do this at Mar-a-Lago if you want.
Okay.
Right, we can do it. Right, if he hasn't thought of this, let's put the thought in his head right now. Right?
Okay.
Pure satanic.
I think he'll watch this.
Energy. You think so? Yeah. Right, what you have to do is you have to find Melania, get inside her. Right. Where do you go to get that? You got to get inside their head, and you have to penetrate that dream. This is how the Magi are working. Why? Because their eyes are open, Danny. When you start to interact with the outside, apparently you get some kind of knowledge. That knowledge can be cataloged over years of people's experience. That's what the priests are doing. And they're creating a pathway for you to be able to navigate. Right? So, I don't know, maybe there's something to it. Maybe once you blast off with that DMT or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
Combination of shit, and they give you the scorpion venom and you got the stuff going on, and you die and you come back. Maybe it turns on some kind of observational power you've got.
It does something. It rewires your brain. It gives you a different perspective on stuff.
Maybe that's where you're supposed to be. Maybe like that is human. Maybe that's human.
Yeah.
You know? And the rest of us are zombies.
Well, it makes sense. Like when they talk about Eleusis being a portal to another world, but like if Eleusis was this place where people could go experience these drugs and have the experience of dying and being born again and going to this other dimension, which is an earth-shattering experience. It sounds just like a DMT or a mushroom trip, and if you can put a walled garden around it and make it a secret where you're not allowed to talk about it and you have to pay to bring your goat or whatever and sacrifice to be able to come here.
Yeah, and all that kind of stuff, yeah.
You could absolutely convince people that they are meeting the gods.
Hearing the voice of God.
Because that's exactly what it is. Unless you have some sort of scientific explanation, you know, where you like we have today, where people try to explain. I mean, we still, even today, people don't know what's happening on DMT. There's theories of what, you know, some people say that it's the brain. The brain is a filter that's filtering out what's really here in our reality, and the brain is filtering the things that we need to be able to perceive in order to survive. And when these drugs break that down and they show you what's really there, you know, that's the theory that people think that that's what's going on. I mean, there's people that are trying to study doing extended state DMT trips to try to figure out what exactly is going on there, because we don't know. Is it inside of our brains? Is it just some sort of chemical thing that's happening inside of our heads that is giving us this experience? Or is it outside? We still don't know today. So thousands of years ago, it's totally plausible that they thought that they were going to hell or going to heaven and being initiated into something spiritual. And if you can have some sort of a structure around that, some sort of cult structure where there's a leader who decides, you know, who is able to be initiated.
Yeah. Especially if there's sexuality in the mystery.
Yeah.
If somebody wants you to...
Especially if you're doing something... I mean, I don't know if that... Even when that was happening, was that the sexual stuff? Was that frowned upon?
Completely contemporary.
It was a ubiquitous thing.
Jesus, yeah, the Ophites, yeah, eat my baby.
Right.
Right, it's basically a blood cult.
Yeah,
right? And they're right in line with Christianity. They're doing the same thing. It's why Jesus was frowned upon when they were like, hey, do you want this murderer? And they're like, no way, get that pedo. Right? And people don't see that. The history is way more. That's why I'm calling the bluff on any ism that anybody's got where they want to make jack. Right? Don't believe the stories. Go to the text. What do the texts say? Look at that and see what they say. This one says Jesus was giving his penis to Mary, God, to put in her holy mouth.
What is that? The study you sent me from the University of Tampa, where they found a mug, an ancient mug. They thought that there was breast milk and drugs mixed together.
Female vaginal proteins, it said.
Can you find that, Steve? There's an article that just came out from University of Tampa about an Egyptian mug.
Best jar. It was visiting them, and they were looking at it, and they did some chemical analysis and found vaginal proteins. Oh, God. Give me some of that best jar.
Vaginal proteins?
Yeah. How do you do that, man?
There it is. Ancient Egyptian mug at the Tampa Museum of Art. Once held psychotropic drugs, human blood, and bodily fluids. Research reveals.
I told you. Look at Bess. Look at that. Oh, God. Those Egyptians with their dirtiness.
Keep going down. Bess. Who is Bess?
Oh, some Egyptian deity.
Some Egyptian deity.
Something to do with sex. Yeah. Get an Egyptologist in here. God damn it.
Huh. That's cool.
Yeah.
And when was this published? This was published recently, I think.
Recently. Just like they did the hair. The hair of Menorca.
It's up.
Right?
Up, way up, above the text.
With the drugs.
Below the photo, above the text.
Below the photo.
There you go. October 29th, 2023. About a year ago.
Yeah. And supposedly they did the chemical analysis on it. And, you know, people are surprised. So it's got vaginal stuff in it, you know? Body fluids. Love it, baby. Why do you think you drink out of her purpled flowers? That's what makes you a god. They sang about it. You can take a vagina. Oh, God. Let's do it. Let's just go ahead and do it. You can take a vagina and you can turn it into a reservoir of the water of life. And when you find your purpose, then the muse will sing.
When you find your bird, the muse will sing.
Are you kidding me?
What does that mean?
Yeah, oh, they put purple on their... The purple, the burning purple is one of the cold drugs they're using. There's a whole trade behind it. There's a whole economy behind it and everything. And people are just now discovering it or rediscovering. Oh, the purple. Right? Good. Good. They're using it in their rights, baby. Those purple fingers. You know what happens when you get purpled? You hear voices. Who wants to hear voices? Yeah. It's God. And Mary hears her and hears him and it makes her pregnant. Oh my God, give her the old man with the rod. They actually gave her away. It's amazing. It's amazing. What do you do with the priestesses? You see how it can be turned into a market?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Everybody went running. When they offered Mary, who's 12, here, you gotta take her, she's pregnant with God's baby. Here she goes. They auctioned her off. Dudes are willing. They want her. It's not an auction. It's you put in your rod. Whoever rod gets her, they take her away, right?
Like a raffle?
Yeah, it's a raffle, right? It's a raffle. But they're doing a lot of raffling. They do that in the temple. The prophets do it. You don't know this. You're going to see it in the Septuagint, because you don't really read the Greek. All these pikers who come up here and say, this kind of Greek and that bullshit. You don't really read the Greek. I can tell by listening to you. Right? They're using the lots, what you and I call the sortes, in the temple. Whenever they want to figure out what God's opinion of something is, they go cast lots. Yeah, it's a way of reading God. Right? So when they give him, who should we give the virgin to? Who should we give her to? Because now she's 12 and pregnant with God's baby. Who do we give her to? They call her Mary Purple Fingers. Who do we give her to? We have a lot, and God ultimately tells us. We have prophets who do this in the Septuagint. They go into the temple, and it says in the text, I entered into a state of ecstasy, and I heard the voice of God saying X, Y, and Z. And God wanted me to do this. How do I know? Because I cast the lots, and that's what he said for me to do. Yeah. This is not Moses and Marlon Brando, or no, what's his name? Charlton Heston and all that.
Right.
This is the reality of the anthropology. This is what the texts show. Imagine, you and I are talking about eunuchs. We don't have any eunuchs to dig up, right, who can tell their stories. But we know how they were using them through these guys like Tiberius and through this guy, Jesus Christ, who's walking around telling you and your children, blessed are the eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven. Yeah. He's just not sophisticated enough to throw him over the cliff, right?
How many times have you read the Bible?
Oh God, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know because I use it all the time and I'm reading it very, very frequently.
Really?
Very, very frequently. Like, oh God, if I get through a week without reading at least 2 or 3 books of the Septuagint and New Testament,
That's crazy.
then something's wrong because
Alright, let's finish this shit.
all that literature frequently. Yeah. And I love to read it backwards. The best way to read the Apocalypse is to read it backwards.
Why is that?
You didn't read.
I just hit read.
Because it was
That
designed
was
that
I
way.
just practiced one.
It was designed
Oh my
backwards?
God.
Yeah.
That's why I'm tripping.
What do you mean by
Thank you.
that?
It was built.
It was what?
It was reverse engineered. The climax, right, was punctured itself into another universe. Boom, gave you the apocalypse. Why are they doing these things? The first time I noticed this was when I was reading the PGM.
The magical Greek papyri.
The Greek magical papyri. And they have these words that will mirror, and all of a sudden you're reading backwards. You're reading forwards and backwards, right? The people who were involved in all of this high-tech drug stuff that are entering people. I mean, they've that knowledge to be able to castrate you. That same. You also have to have that knowledge of which drugs do what to the body,
Yeah.
and how you can manipulate. How you can manipulate. What was?
Nazi drugs.
Oh God.
Yeah.
How you can
The way he
manipulate
whipped up this. The first time he whipped up
somebody's.
the salt bass.
What you and I would say, their mind.
Manipulate their mind.
Yeah, that's what the craft of the Magi, and that's why they do the interrogations and all that kind of stuff. It's like a legal. They have a certain legal clout and tradition, because they're able to, think about the people who traveled. Pythagoras goes to Egypt and to Persia just to learn the drugs that they're using. Right, and think about. The clout that you have, the dictators or kings, tyrants, whatever you want to call them, have entire boards of magi that they consult. And one of the favorite things that you and I can all consult is the eunuch and the chief eunuch and his eunuchs like Daniel. Because these are the prophets. They're able to see. Right? They've been given the gift of vision. This is nothing new. It's all over the Mediterranean, bro. Right? It's all there. And that gift is given through that serpent combo that's wound around that staff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is the theriac and the death inducer. So if you'd been there, you'd understand that you wouldn't have to sit here and breathe it. Oh my God. Right.
Were there any stimulants? Did they have cocaine and heroin back then?
Yeah.
Or did they only have psychedelics?
No, the cocaine is not there, right? That's a new.
They didn't have coca?
They had stimulants, but they didn't have coca, right? That's a new world drug.
Okay.
But very famously, it's not Empedocles. It's one of his buddies. Oh, I'll think of his name in a minute. He walked around with a stimulant that he got from a root and grated it really fine. It was like a powder. And he would very famously snort the stimulant. And he caps it in his favorite Colt, C-O-L-T, Colt Hoof. Colt Hoof. Right? Make that thing come alive, man. I'm looking at its tiny pee-pee. He kept it in a hoof.
You keep the top on.
From a Colt. C-O-L-T. And he, yeah, I think so. And he would sniff it. It was either that or a cow, I don't know. He would sniff it. And it would cause him to be able to, among other things, time travel.
Time travel?
Yeah.
With a stimulant?
Yeah.
Whoa.
They would do it in caves, and people would end up getting older, and you get these lifespans. If you don't believe me, check out the lifespan of Pythagoras. Pythagoras was going into caves and traveling through time. He lived in a cave.
Pythagoras?
Yeah, there was a famous, famous grottos and all that kind of stuff. What's that?
What the hell? No way. He lived 75 to 100 years.
No way.
75 to 95?
He lived that old?
During that time, it's
No, he lives way longer.
What?
Yeah.
What was the average lifespan
Like-
of people back then?
200 years. Average lifespan is no different than yours.
Really?
Yeah,
The
no,
lifespan
no, no.
was the same.
No.
Pre-Christ.
The life expectancy, right? So statistically, more of us are likely to get killed off just in,
Yes, right.
childbirth and in war.
Lifespan is the same.
Well, infant
Right.
mortality rate was like 50%.
Right, so there's a higher chance that you're going to die off before you reach your golden years, but that lifespan doesn't change.
Best
They're
case
still
scenario-
80, they're still 80, 90 years old.
So if you're not dying from famine or war or
Right.
plague,
If
you're
you're
going to
not
live the
humans
same.
will always
Wow.
If you're not one of the statistics. But
Did they have cancer back then?
Yeah, but it doesn't look like it's as much.
Not as much
It's
cancer.
not as prevalent. They do have it, though. Yeah, they do have it.
Really?
Yeah.
Did they distinguish like different types of cancers and like what? Like
No.
Were they removing? Did Galen
No.
ever do any tumor
He
removals?
did a breast. He didn't do a tumor removal. He did a reduction. So
He reduced the tumor.
he opened it up, and then he took his hubu-jubu together and blah-la-hoo-ha and put it in there. And next thing you know, it was reduced. And I know that
Shit.
the ingredient, one of them was the stuff that he was getting from the priestess on Lemnos, who made that. She made an awesome drug, dude. Yeah, it was a combo. They call it the Limnian Earth. It was a Metallica Pharmaca. Do you understand? The Pharmaca, the plural Pharmaca, those drugs that are Metallica. They come from the Earth. She made the Limnian. She's also a lyre player, dude, so you gotta give her that. And she
was a what?
A lyre player,
What does that mean?
Guitars.
A liar.
Sexy guitar playing prophetess.
It's in Boulder's 8-3.
And she makes
If you're a
drugs.
bard, you get to play.
And one of the drugs she makes, Galen went out and got like 20,000 pills from her. And they have her little seal and everything. Everybody was getting them. It wasn't just Galen. He just wanted to get 20,000 of them, or however many.
Was Galen constantly doing drugs too?
You were doing drugs from the time that you were a baby and you have an earache. What do we give them? We give them all opium, dude. Your body is the way it is because you can't handle it, you hophead. If you were raised on it, yeah, you'd be different. And they describe this phenomenon, right? You become used to it, right? You become
Your tolerance.
What we would
You build
say,
tolerance.
what we'd say is tolerance. Yeah, you do. So you gotta keep giving. You gotta keep giving. Well,
It's
if you're
amazing that Galen
exposed,
was doing all this stuff, and he was cutting up bodies and studying anatomy and studying pharmacology and drugs, and at the same time he was like a philosophical writer, and he wrote 10% of the text that we have. 10% of the classical text is Galen, right?
yeah. Now that's been an estimation. But I don't know if they figured that out on the TLG or something like that. If it is 10%, okay, great.
Yeah.
That's apparent to any classicist because you use research tools that are all marked by Galen. We figure out what a lot of words mean through Galen because he's so friggin' wordy.
Right.
Thousands of pages, baby. Just over and over and over again. So imagine this, Danny. Imagine that classicists ignore Galen. And they are, which they traditionally do,
They do ignore Galen.
totally ignore Galen.
There was you sent me a recent dissertation from a guy in Europe,
Exeter,
Exeter, who did a dissertation all about Galen.
He did a translation of the Theriac to Paizo, in which he describes the Theriac that the emperor is on, Marcus Aurelius. You'd think those friggin' historians would want to know that stuff. Right, they make all these movies, Gladiator, right, they don't even know the real stuff is so much more interesting. You know what I mean? Somebody contact somebody. Personal drug empowerment. You know what I mean? How can you empower yourself? How can you take yourself to that next level? How do you grow? You've got to interact through those drugs, and that is a good thing. So you can see how it runs contrary to modern kind of thought.
Remember when I had a guy on here a few months ago, and I asked you to give me sort of a boot camp in Plato?
Yeah.
And this guy was a Greek. He had a little bit of classical knowledge. His name's Flint Dibble, and he was an archaeologist in Athens.
Great.
And he knew some Greek stuff. And he was basically saying that Atlantis was all bullshit. That Plato.
Yeah. He's right. Plato's a dumbass.
Plato was a dumbass.
No, not a dumb. I don't mean like smart. I don't mean to say. I'm sure he was a hell of a lot smarter than I am. I don't think that people understand that Plato was a liar. He was a huge liar. And his Socrates is not even a real Socrates, and they have to constantly tell you that in these courses that you take on Plato. Right, they have to constantly tell, well, this is Plato's Socrates, this is the Socrates.
So it's like they're insinuating, take it with a grain of salt because it's Plato.
Because it's Plato. He's a liar. And he made up the whole...
Was he a liar, or was he just like coming up with like abstract thought experiments?
The devil hates it. The devil hates it. You can't... You've got to mark that. He's a definite, out-and-out liar. His Atlantis stuff is made up with sources that are made up. Everybody knew that then. He was even off in the number of years. Right? Oh my God. There is no Atlantis, people. Stop looking for it. It's a lie of Plato. Do you see how you got fingered? You went into the back alley of history and Plato stuck his finger somewhere. Yeah.
So so nothing he wrote was historical. Nothing at all.
He's a philosopher, dude.
He's a philosopher, right?
Yeah. A lot of, like you say, thought experiments. You know, if you're into that thing, dude, go for it. Right? Go for it. And it's good stuff. And, it's got enough facts about Socrates, who was a great person, that you can pick up kind of the background of who this dude was. And really the only thing that matters about Socrates, and I will offend many of my colleagues, but I'll go ahead and do it. The only thing to like about Socrates is nothing that Plato said. It is what the oracle at Delphi said. She said Socrates was the wisest Athenian, right? Because he knows that he knows nothing. It was a big middle finger. It was a big middle finger to the Athenian intellectual establishment. And pissed him off, and what did they do? They fucking killed him. Yeah. Why is that? Because Socrates was the gadfly.
Didn't they give him an ultimatum?
Well, he could leave. He had a choice. He could leave in exile.
What would have happened if he left?
He could just leave all of his stuff and goes.
He'd rather die.
And he lived there all his life. Why would I do this, right? He was old, dude. Seriously? The hemlock's not bad, baby. That stuff kills you pretty quick. You know what I mean?
Just like, fuck, I live.
He had his thing, but he was there as a gadfly. And from the oracle at Delphi, she was his muse. And she said, listen, you Athenian rich bastards. You know nothing. I'm going to send you the one who knows everything. And that guy said, I have no idea what's going on. Yeah. He was like the anti-smarty. And Plato turns him into his little toy. His little toy eunuch playing Plato. What else can we do with the eunuchs? Once you cut off their testicles, they've got to be useful for something. Do you know what they can be used for? Outside of Athens, there's a district where the tragedians get their boys. Because there's something in it, baby. There's something in the magic of the eunuch. They're for the kingdom of heaven. Do you understand? This is Jesus. This is Jesus. Did you want to know who Jesus is? This is why the people run from Ammon. And I want to adopt today. I just want everybody to know that I, Ammon, through the voice of Lady Babylon, I am telling you, I am the exorcist slayer. When Huff ran away, I was sad because I looked at it. I looked at a Huff meat and I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna drain this guy. You know what I mean?
Do you want to? Should we watch his response to you, and we can break it down?
Oh, let's do that. The audience will know that he turned down 2 invitations right before.
Yes.
And after. Before
That's okay.
Crucified that guy, and after he crucified that guy.
Poor baby Billy Carson.
Yeah, oh, he was like a lamb.
You gotta start around the 6.5 minute mark.
Oh my God.
Okay, I'll be quiet.
Okay.
The plot thinking he was invited before the.
There's a lot of people online that really want this guy to debate you. So let's listen to what his response is to your translation of the word Christ.
Yeah.
Perfect. Here we go.
Eternal throne as the second person of the Trinity stepping into humanity. But if you were to say to someone after this, if someone said like, hey, you met Wes Huff, how was he? And you went, he's a little bit condescending. You wouldn't be talking about my humility.
No.
Right? Because that word has a different meaning in its different contexts. And part of the problem with something like what Ammon says is that he's taking terminology that exists within the parameters of a specific field, and then he's applying them in areas where there's an entirely different contextual meaning and spectrum of understanding.
It's a big
So
turd.
part of
Catch
what
it
he
off.
said that some people jumped on was that he says that the word Christ comes from the Greek word chrio, which
Yes.
it does, right, to anoint. And in ancient Greek medical texts, there is a usage of that which he has capitalized on with applying drugs to your eyes. Now, more broadly, chrio does mean to rub, particularly a liquid ointment or substance, on your body. So this relates to everything from bathing to ritual practices in religious circumstances. But you could likewise say if you were an ancient Roman and you had a bath and you came out and you put on cream, skin cream,
Right.
so your skin didn't dry out, that was an example of chrio. You were applying it to your body. Well, within the religious connotation of Christianity is the translation of the Greek word Mashiach, Messiah, which likewise means anointed one, right? There were multiple anointed ones in the Old Testament. It was just a word that was referred to priests or kings and had a very specific connotation in the Mashiach, who would come and be different. And the Greek translation of that, which both the Greek translation of the Old Testament and in the New Testament both use, is Christ. Why? Because it means anointed one. So Ammon takes that and he says, well, in this very specific instance, in this stream of classical medical literature, it means to apply a drug to your eyes, specifically related to not the bot fly. What does he say?
The bot fly.
He relates it to a fly. And
I don't remember the detail, but
well, and it does mean
Wouldn't you,
that
moron?
in the particular instance that it's being used. But this is where semantic range is very important.
Semantic range.
Oh, God.
And this is the problem that some
Hold on,
readers have.
let him finish. Let him finish.
yeah,
He's almost
pull
there.
up this clip, by the way?
It's about the climax.
There's context. I think I have it.
All right, fast forward through the part where he plays the clip. We don't need to play that again. Okay,
His
there.
nonsense there. But you're saying that, like, he's stretching some of his knowledge on the pharmacological history of language and bringing that into, say, Jesus's lexicon and how he says things.
Yeah, so there's two sort of terms that are used specifically within biblical studies, but this applies to anything within the ancient world where we're trying to come up with translations in deriving meaning. The first is there's a discipline called hermeneutics, and hermeneutics is this interpretation.
Yeah, that's
it's
you.
the methodology
You're
of
good.
interpretation used in a particular text. Before hermeneutics is exegesis, and exegesis is a Greek word that literally means to bring out. Right, the opposite would be eisegesis, to read into.
He's
So
not
if you're
even
reading
listening.
something and you're looking at an ancient language, you're trying to get the author's intention by different levels of contextual application.
He's pulling the demon out of
Stop,
you.
stop, you're trying. Stop. I can't take it.
You look like you're going through an exorcism right now.
Steve,
Is
stop.
Wes Huff pulling the devil out of you right now?
God.
He's
Oh, God,
confusing
stop.
and
It's
That
so
makes you
bad.
never heard of hermeneutics.
It's
realms of how we do
Stop. You're trying to get to the intention of the author. No, you're not. You're reading an ancient language.
Amen. You're pulling out a specific context in Galen's medical text and trying to apply it to everything across the board, which is intellectually dishonest.
Here's the problem. I'm not pulling it out of Galen. Does Galen have it? Yes. Euripides has it. He gets a sex drug that is a Christ. One of the characters asks, is it a Christ? This is not from the medical. This is from everything. Everything, Wes Huff, you fucking fake. Yeah, this is why he wouldn't face me. I can tell you right now, and I can tell your audience. Your audience must know. This man does not really read Greek. What is he, finishing his PhD?
He's finishing his PhD.
Yeah, he's finishing his PhD in biblical studies. You know what that means? It means he's had a couple of semesters of Greek.
He's a baby.
Yeah, yeah, he was able to say the name Xenophon. That was nice. Dude, does he read ancient Greek? No. That's why what comes out of his mouth is theological bullshit. This is not a craftsman. This is not a skill. This is theology taking you into a back alley and putting its finger in your butt. Yeah. And that's why he wouldn't face me. That's why he wouldn't. Let's read some Greek. Let's look at where it says Jesus. He wanted Mary to suck it down.
So, who are the other authors that say that Christ is applying a drug to your eyes besides Galen?
John, the apostle. Where are they? This is, oh God. This is the half of the
He's
West.
saying it's only in a few places, and you're saying it's literally everywhere.
Here, get this. Focus on camera. Here's some Greek for you, Wes. You idiot. It's in the book of Revelation, you moron. God tells them you better Christ your eyes so they'll be opened. You're not, Wes. You don't know what you're doing. You're a second-rate biblical scholar that will go down every time to a class and says, why, Wes? Because I read those f***ing texts. I love it.
How do you really feel?
You know what I tell you? Sometimes I think I can feel their buttocks.
You're passionate about this,
I
aren't
think
you?
I can feel it. Well, it's what the devil gives you, man. It's what the devil gives you. Look, he's been pumped up in his pride. He thinks he's something now. Because he slaughtered somebody who was making stuff up. Well, guess what? This is the gymnasium of the cosmos, baby. Right? You'll be taken down. You'll be taken down by somebody who knows. Right? Oh, God. I love those classes. Did you talk to any classicists? I would love to say, hey, why don't you get over here and start reading the text that you are. You know, Princeton just got rid of their Greek program, right?
I did not know that.
Yeah, they did. You know why? It was because it's too hard. Can I just say, right off the bat, Jesus did not drug children for sex. Jesus sucked the antidote out of underage boys. There's a big difference. He's balancing by using a theriac.
He wasn't getting joy out of it. He was just doing it to survive.
No, did you hear him? He was like, oh God, take this cup away from me, as he's standing there looking at this naked kid. And he's like, oh God, take this cup away from me. I don't know. You know, he may have felt bad for him or something, but he knew that if he didn't get that... Right, and it's not milky, it's clear at that age. Okay? And what comes out of it balances.
Yeah.
And he needed it. And because he didn't get it, that's why he's screaming on the cross, ah, God, I'm so thirsty. Ah, and he starts rattling off magic names, Sabachthon. Oh, God. And then he just chunks off dead. And everybody's like looking at each other. And the guy with the antidote's looking at everybody else. And he's like, shit. Right.
And we mentioned this briefly on the first podcast, but what is the hard evidence that the two gentlemen crucified next to him were child traffickers?
It says that. It says calls them all laceti. It says he was crucified in Mark between two laceti.
It's in Mark.
It's either in Mark. Yeah, it is in Mark. I went back and checked because it's in Matthew too, I think. But it's between two laceti. Yeah, it's in 14 after the 51-52 when he's with the naked kid. Mm-hmm. And by the way, these people like Wesley Huff, they're trying to say that the kid was not actually naked.
He was wearing a linen, and then it fell off when he ran away.
He ran out of his clothing.
So the logic behind that is, why would it fall off? Right. If it's a piece of clothing, it's tethered to you. Right. It's tied to you. It's wrapped around you so you can navigate, you can walk around, and it will stay on you. If I run away, my pants aren't going to fall off.
Correct.
Solution for you to
Correct. And explicitly in the Greek, it's even marked in the Greek because it uses the expression epigono, which is epi is just a preposition that's able to give you the positioning of something. So it's literally positioned on his nakedness.
Yeah.
It's on the part itself. It doesn't say he's a mummy or something, right? They want to turn him into a mummy. They're going to take this cloth and wrap him up like a mummy.
The word that they use, the word that they use for the linen wrapped around him in Greek it means a medicated bandage.
It's a medicated bandage, and they're used all over the place. So for people to mistake this, it's like it doesn't make sense historically. If you can either follow the fairy tale or you can follow the facts that are in the documents. Mm-hmm. Right? So Jesus is out there, remember. Where's Jesus hanging out? He's hanging out with demoniacs, baby. And they're all coming to him, right, for their cures. Right?
What was the party he was at in the back room? They said he was on the top level or something. This is what you talked about in the first podcast. He was doing something.
Yeah. There was some feet washing going on.
So why
correctly?
My question is, why was he washing feet
with his cloth?
Yeah.
I don't know. Why would you?
Why was he participating in the mystery in some back room somewhere, and then decide to move the party out to a public park? Well, why? What's the necessity for being in the public park? Why not just stay in the shack?
Yeah, why not just take your kid, the kid who's following him, and it ends up naked? Why not just take him in the upper room and do your thing in the upper room?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, that's a great question. If you'll notice, the only answer, I don't have an answer to that. The only, way you could approach it is a thought experiment. What do you do with the evidence? Okay, say we're before a judge and a jury. We have to present evidence. What's the evidence? At the time, Your Honor, he was stumbling around and confused and angry in the park. In the park. And he had 3 of his students standing at guard, and they were so drugged, they couldn't stay awake. They couldn't stay awake. Why? Because Jesus at this party eucharized the cup. Do you understand? Jesus eucharized, and everybody hears the fairy tale. Ha, ha, ha. Right? That's when he adds the drugs. That's when he makes the drink. They're going to put it on the bread. The shit is so potent, they're going to put it on bread. And when they give it to you, you get it. You are that eunuch. Why does he have to go to the public park? Because he's not there just to have sex with those boys. Jesus gets that all the time. He doesn't need it. Other people need it. You take the kids to the cemetery. You see, when Tiberius makes his island with his grottos, he's meeting a demand. People want to have with children. People want to have with children. Your Honor, I'm standing before human history and I testify to you, Madam. People want to have with children. And that's why you go to the public park. You prep them. He had to prep them. He's doing all the dirty dance for him with Dangleberry. Yeah, John sitting on his lap. Get off Jesus' lap, John. Get off!
And then why did he end up making out with Judas?
It's a thing.
It's a thing.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
It's just a thing.
Galilee boys. That's why the female prostitutes recognized. Who recognizes the earliest apostles? It's the girl prostitutes. Nobody found that to be historically important. Yeah, it's the girl prostitutes.
Maybe scholars just think it's better that we leave this behind us. It's not going to benefit us moving forward.
I'm sure every classicist is tied to their head and would never comment on this because they would be immediately fired if they did.
Like you did.
Right? Yeah, exactly. You can't open your mouth and talk about this stuff. It makes people uncomfortable. And they actually have ways of getting rid of you. Okay, I don't know how it is now, but when they got rid of me, they would just charge you with making somebody uncomfortable. I've made somebody uncomfortable. Interesting. Do you know who I've made uncomfortable? Every f***ing priest sitting in that audience who had been involved. Every one of them, that chorus of beautiful college virgins. They pointed those right at those priests. They pointed them right at those priests. And they told them what they were. And for a minute, speech was free. And then they fired me. Which I'm pretty sure I had something to do with.
I also hadn't realized the first time you came on here was that when they fired you, you had already published your book about original sin.
Yeah.
So they caught wind of original sin, which you wrote before or after the Chemical Muse?
After the Chemical Muse.
You wrote that after the Chemical Muse.
Yeah, so
original sin. They probably got wind of that book and decided this guy's a cancer. We got to cut him out.
They didn't probably. There's no probably about it. Monsignor Thomas Melvin came to me and said, "We know about your book, and I've been to 5 meetings about you." And I said, "I'm glad. Did you read the book?" And he's like, "Yeah, we read the book." And, it goes from there. And people want to deny that there was a hearing that was held, some kind of inquiry into my state of possession. And people want to poo-poo that. If you go talk to Tom Melvin, he'll tell you. He's a vicar general now, I think. But
Tom Melvin?
Yeah, Monsignor Tom Melvin. He's a great guy. He was one of my students. And he was a Catholic, former Navy.
Mm-hmm.
And he had morals like any soldier. I mean, he was, what is it? Oh, God, it was a donkey. They call him a donkey.
He's like, oh,
When
God.
the helicopter comes over the carrier, listen to what this guy did. He ran out with what they call the donkey and attached it to the cargo nets.
Yeah.
And then to the bottom of the helicopter. That was his job.
Oh, wow.
Right? While the boat is pitching and stuff, right? So it's pitching, but you can't see it when you're on it. So that helicopter, he said, that thing's going up and down a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I bet.
So he said it can be quite dangerous. And anyway, he went to a meeting. Tom, I'm going to tell him because you're a good man. I used to give confession at Tom. I loved it. It was good. I loved it. Tom said that, he was involved. His position, just to give you a little bit of history, he was a punisher. He was the one who investigated priests who had gone astray. Yeah, he knew everything. Servers, all that kind of stuff, they watched. And when the stuff got bad and people got involved and stuff, he had to go in and be the punisher. And he was mad. He was mad, man. He was mad at the attitude. Flippant. More angry about being caught than being wrong. And he said he came in one day and Tom Melvin, I'll never forget this. He looked at him sitting there across having a coffee in the school cafeteria. There was a little shop, a little buy burritos, stuff like that. And he's sitting there and he goes, I wanted to take a baseball bat to his head. And I just got the image of him here. And this priest is sitting here. Thinks he can get away with it and is pissed off that you're investigating. Like he has some right. He has some right. They do. They have a historical right. They've been doing that since Jesus was doing it.
And some people online have gotten a hold of your deposition.
Yeah.
Some sort of deposition where the lawyers were interrogating you about some sort of some sort of dream molesting that you were doing, and you showed me some clips of that where they were asking you about. You claimed that you were like Pan and emailing people and all this weird stuff.
Yeah, 7-hour deposition.
7-hour deposition.
The guy was yelling, "Are you the God Pan?" My attorney's going, "Objection!" Right, but in a deposition, there's no ruling. You just get to enter the objection. Right, so they wanted to know about my cult. And was I running a cult, and were there goats involved? And drugs involved, and virgin Catholic girls. Oh, God. That was the good part. I was like, well, you guys are sick. Right, but it's made for good fiction. Right, and that's why the objections. Objection. Right? Oh, God, people were saying I was floating.
Yeah, I read that.
Right, so, anyway, that was the dirty part. Let's not talk about that dirty part. I did dirty things floating around.
Yeah, apparently you did. Allegedly.
Dude, you know, that's inadmissible. You're right, it's the perfect, you got the perfect alibi. If you can harness that incubus, fly across time and space to ravage the maidens in the sororities, oh, God. Who would not? Steve, come on, man, let's go. Let's go. Tonight, I'll show you, and you and me.
You'll teach me the ways.
I will.
True. If I can levitate, yeah. That's what I'm going to do.
All right. That's all, folks.
Right.
Thank you, Almond. That was fantastic.
Fucking college.
I want to tell all the people, the congregation of Satan, please, from Lady Babylon, please, tell Danny thank you. Put it in your comments and tell him, Danny, you're so sexy, right? We want these. No, it's important, Danny, because the people have been telling me they hunger, just like I do. They hunger for the feast. Please bring me a New Testament scholar, please. Please bring me
that's
two, Danny, if you can, bring me a couple, right? And
He said it before,
it would be absolutely delicious, and it won't just be me feasting, it would be the congregation feasting as well. I want you to know they've been harping on me. When are you going to do it? When is it coming, Danny? Right, we need it. And by the way, people, they used to do this in antiquity, right? The Christians and the leading pagans of the day would have debates. And they would talk about stuff, and they would confront.
Yes.
And that's what's so important. Any of these scholars that doesn't want to confront, it's because they're trying to cover their ass so they can make some more money to buy a bigger boat. And we got to tell these people to fuck themselves.
Yeah, bigger island.
Hail Satan. Good night, everybody.
Shit, buddy.
I want to know what you all do with takes, like how many takes? Are you all like, I'll do 30 takes if that's what it takes? Or are you, like, do you just...
This shit. Shall we call it?
It's short, I mean...
57 minutes?
I'm done to watch it. I know how to start it.
You know how to start it?
Yeah.
I might knock out, bro. I'm not gonna lie.
Yo.
That chicken got me.
And then we did alright then.
But we can start it, but yeah, I might just
Yeah,
also.
if you getting slumpy,
You feel me?
yeah, I'll bounce.
But we made good progress today, though. That shit. You feel me? We definitely. How long has it been? It's been a couple hours, huh? 4, 3.
What?
Since we started live stream.
Oh yeah, for a minute. She's got some good content too. So we also like, I don't know. A lot of things are like set in stone. Like the motion is set. I don't know. Like I got the YouTube.